Hello, welcome to try number 2 of today's IGTV. I'm gonna hope this one works. I'm talking about setting boundaries with your family because I don't know about you, but the holiday season can feel like your shoulders are going in your ears and there's nails down a chalkboard and you don't want any part of it. So please let me know in the comments if you can hear me. I would appreciate that. And we are going to talk all about setting boundaries with your family over the holidays. If you're in the United States, Thanksgiving is coming up next week, and this is an issue that is massive for so many people. And I don't want you to relate the holidays with so much frigging stress constantly that the holidays in itself become something that you dread or you avoid. That breaks my heart. My name is Allie Payne. I'm a certified life coach, certified relationship systems coach, and I am super passionate about helping families to heal their emotional pain, learn the fundamental skills to build healthy, lasting relationships based on trust and respect that changes generations. I've been working specifically with parents of teens for the last 15 years as a retired and very former troubled teen myself. So this whole holiday thing, it's a hot one. It's a kind of a hot mess in some ways. If you are familiar with the holidays are just so full of cultural expectations because Hallmark movies, Disney, commercialization, and I'm not here to preach all about it's not the reason for the season. Whatever you believe, I love and honor you. Whatever, that's fine. There is though a level of commercialization that has placed so many heavy expectations about the holidays being this season where everybody just loves to be together with their family and they can't get enough, and everyone's wearing the same pajamas and playing card and board games and yay, a little more eggnog. Can we just be honest for a second? It's not like that. Am I the only one? It's not like that. So here's what I need you to understand. Expectations are a projection of how I want to feel on someone else. So they need to be or do certain things so I have the emotional experience that I want. Okay? So the holiday season is full of tradition. And that can be a good thing, a very nuanced thing, or it can be a really negative thing. Traditions, what do you bring to family dinners? What kind of turkey you cook? How the turkey's cut. Grandma always makes the gravy this way, or it's all about tradition. And those traditions can be really great. They're very subtle, fine, nuanced. They can also be very explicit traditions. There's nothing wrong with them unless there is. Only you decide. There's families who have traditions that they go tobogganing, or our tradition in our family is we have a pizza party on Christmas Eve. Pizza and Sunday. We line up all the fixins and we have, a tradition of pizza and Sundays on Christmas Eve. That's what we do. So traditions can be a great thing. However, yes, I will say that again. Traditions are something that lead to even more expectations. Okay. Now today we're talking about setting healthy boundaries with your family over the holidays, but the holidays are so rife with cultural expectations. An expectation is the unhealthy, unattainable version of a boundary. Expectations are the unhealthy, unspoken version of a boundary. They are not the same. An expectation is, I need you to do certain things or be a certain way so that I can have the emotional experience that I want. Like the Instagram family in all the same pajamas, playing the board games and everyone is happy. That's the experience I want. So what happens is I project my experience on you. I buy everyone the pajamas. I get out the board games. I don't even ask if you want to participate because expectations are also assumptive. And so the expectations are woven in, and you perhaps don't want to wear those pajamas. Maybe you find the whole board game thing really yucky because maybe I am competitive, not that I am, and I always have to win. And so I'll do anything to win. So I'm over here having a load of fun. This is my favorite thing. And you literally dread it because you know it's the same board game every time. I'm not willing to negotiate. It has to be the board game I choose. And I have to win. How much fun are you having so far? How much fun are you having so far? Yeah. And what ends up happening out of an expectation, there's only 2 guaranteed outcomes out of an expectation. Okay? The first is you will always feel judged and a failure because you're not meeting my expectation. You're not being my Hallmark movie. You are not exactly ever going to be a certain way or do things in the specific way that I want you to, I expect you to, so I can have the emotional experience that I want. I am always going to feel disappointed. I will always feel disappointed because you didn't love the board game as much as I wanted you to. You didn't love the pajamas I chose as much as you wanted to. You didn't smile enough, like as if you really meant it in the Instagram photo that I was going to post. You didn't do it the way I wanted you to. Period. So what I want you to understand is traditions are a great thing. Traditions can be both implicit, nuanced, unspoken. Traditions can also be explicit, very overt, and spoken. Okay? Traditions are not just around the holidays. Tradition are considered also in our brains. They're unconscious and conscious cultural norms that you may or may not be okay with. Okay? From tradition, we often build expectation. It's not necessarily codependence. No, not necessarily. I will go there. So expectations, you might have an expectation to create a tradition, or a tradition may be feeding an expectation. There's kind of a duality there, okay, between expectations and traditions, okay? Regardless, let's talk about how to not do the holidays that way, shall we? All right, this is really hard, okay? Because there's probably nothing harder than familial relationships because they are so filled with expectation and they are so emotionally fraught with pitfalls and historic grounding that they become really hard to be. They become one of the hardest places to actually express what is true for you by using boundaries. All right. So a boundary is a healthy way to express what works for you and what doesn't in a way that requires ownership of the experience you want to create, not projecting it, where you put your own emotional needs before pleasing others. Yes, exactly. So, exactly. The more people-pleasing there is, people-pleasing is a version of codependency. So great point, you guys. So boundaries are a healthy expression of what works for you and what doesn't in a way where you take ownership of the experience that you want and put your own emotional needs before pleasing others. Okay? I'm going to say this one more time. Expectations are the unhealthy, often unspoken version where you are projecting the emotional experience that you want on other people. So they have to be a certain way or do certain things for you to have the emotional experience that you want. Okay, I hope you're getting that distinction here. All right, now I'm going to give you some specific examples that I got yesterday in my TikTok live. If you don't follow me on TikTok, at Allie Payne, I go live every Wednesday, currently there. Okay, so here's some specific examples in your family, okay? Let's say that your parents or your in-laws, outlaws, exes, I don't care, whatever, have some inappropriate, now, okay, I'm just saying inappropriate, unhealthy, that's all, conversation with your child over the holidays or whenever you're kind of together, but it always comes up around the holidays. It could be about how your child chooses to dress, okay? Maybe like if you've got like a young adult and they're male and they're, painting their nails and dyeing their hair or wearing makeup or whatever, and your parents didn't grow up in an era where that was okay, and so they're making derogatory comments toward your teenage son about how he's dressing like a girl or whatever. You name the comment, we're not going to get into that. Here's the things that I want to empower you to say prior to, if possible, prior to the holiday season, okay? If you can make this communication, please, over the phone or in person. Please do not make this communication over text or Snapchat or Facebook Messenger. Please do not do that. Relationships were not intended for digital platforms. You are only getting 3% of the communication. You're only getting 3%. So if you want to make things worse, that's likely to happen because there's so much wild misunderstanding over digital platforms. So I'm only going to say that one time. Please do not do that. Do this over the phone or in person or FaceTime or video, whatever, okay? Here's what you could say in this particular circumstance to your in-laws or your parents or whatever about the derogatory, in your mind, derogatory or inappropriate comments they're making to your child. You could say something like this. Mom or dad or whatever. It's come to my attention that the comments, first of all, state your data. Always state data and do as much as possible to not say you. Say I. It's come to my attention that I've heard some comments expressed. I've heard you expressed. You're going to have to use the word you, but keep it in a data form. Not you suck, not a bunch of judgment. I have heard you making comments to my child. In this case, I'm using a teenage son, about the way that they are dressing or doing their nails or wearing makeup, piercings, hair, whatever. I consider those comments to be derogatory and not helpful. I understand that young men, young teens, young males did not express themselves in that way when you were a parent or when you were growing up. I understand that. And this is true and real for my son now. And I find those comments unacceptable and hurtful. Oh, but honey, listen, if you're not going to say it to him, I need to say it to him. I mean, somebody's got to tell him that's that's embarrassing. Young men just shouldn't. I'm not finished talking yet. I appreciate this might be very difficult for you. These comments are not appropriate. And I'm asking you to keep those thoughts or comments to yourself from here forward. If I hear you expressing those types of judgment or comments on our teenage son over the holidays or at any point in the future, we will pack up our things and we'll be heading home. Oh, don't be so sensitive. I mean, again, I can't believe that you guys tolerate this and that you make this okay. I mean, he's not going to get a job. He won't be able to graduate. Young men can't dress that way. Please stop. You are welcome to share your concerns with me about my son. I'm happy to hear how these things can be difficult for you to see and how this is different from when you grew up. It is not acceptable for my son or me for you to be sharing those types of judgments with him. Am I clear? Okay, so I hope that was a bit long, but I hope you got. Here's what's mandatory for you to set these kinds of healthy boundaries with your family around the holidays. Number one, you must be clear about what that boundary is. You must be explicitly clear. It is unfair, and I will tell you it will fail. If you are trying to set boundaries with your family and you just have this feeling, well, you know what I mean. No, they don't know what you mean. So you must do the work first to be clear exactly what words, phrases, and behaviors. Write that down. What words, phrases, and behaviors are you considering out of bounds, disrespectful, unhealthy, derogatory, whatever you want? Be specific. Words, phrases, and behaviors. Very specific. Okay? So that they understand what you're talking about. Number two, you need to decide that people pleasing is less important than creating a healthy and respectful environment. And that means holding your own worth and value a little higher than you have before. I'm not letting you off the hook on this. I fiercely believe in your value, and I hope you do too. I believe everyone deserves to be treated with love and respect and dignity. And if anyone is operating outside of that, no one is going to come and rescue you from this. I get that it's hard. I have done this. I get that your lips turn into concrete and all of a sudden you're standing there like a deer in the headlights and nothing's coming out. I get it. I get it. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it does start with you because they're never going to read your mind or they would have stopped earlier. Okay? So you need to decide that you're worth it. You need to decide your family is worth it. You need to decide that developing a healthy relationship as you define it, nobody else needs to agree with you, is more important than pleasing other people or the fear of hurting their feelings. Because here's something I have to let you know. Your boundaries are not going to work for other people. There, I said it. That's the truth. You setting boundaries with your family or extended family is not going to be easy for them. It's not. And they're probably not going to agree. And that's okay. So I gave one example, okay? I'm just going to give one more example really quickly because I've got a couple other key points I want you to understand about this process. Okay, so we've gone over what a tradition is, what an expectation is, and what a boundary is, okay? What it takes. You have to decide you're important enough. Now, let's say it's about the way your in-laws speak to you, or about the way your own family speaks to you, or it's about like that it always has to be on this date at this place, and it's a lot of travel for you, and it just feels unreasonable, and your family's under significant stress. I don't know about you, but this normal situation right now in this pandemic and everything just feels stressful. So maybe this year you've decided you don't want to be the one who traveled 5 hours to get to the dinner and have to stay overnight and blah, blah, blah. So you would say something like this. to your mother, your in-laws, your whoever it's going to be, your sister, I don't know. I know that we have had Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, whatever, at your house every other year, and it's been awesome, and I really appreciate that you've hosted. I know that hosting is a lot of work. This year, the driving or the date or whatever, it feels like it's not going to work for us. And this has been a decision we've thought a lot about, and this feels really hard for me to say. It's this year, our family needs a bit of a break. Not necessarily from, not from you, but from the energy that this is going to take. We're just not in a place where that feels appropriate, where that feels like it's going to work for us. Well, what do you mean you're not coming? I mean, you always come. Like, I can't even believe you're saying this to me. Yes, I understand that this is probably very hard to hear. This has been really hard for us to come to this decision as well. And we've decided that we won't be attending Thanksgiving dinner this year with you. We would really like to have a FaceTime with you that night so we can see everyone, because our relationships do matter. It's just not going to work for us to have it on that date or drive the 5 hours, you fill in the blank. And I know that this can sound like, we don't love you or you're not important to us anymore. And I understand if that's how you feel. I want to assure you it's not the truth. We're really just doing what works for us this year. And I know that this can be tough. Okay, so here's the elements I want you to understand out of this. As I said, you need to give yourself permission to say it. No one else. And please don't expect they're going to like it. Okay? That's a unicorn fantasy world that doesn't exist. So just stop that right now. Number 2, what I hope you heard in what I was saying was I, as much as possible, not you. I was saying I. Because why? Because boundaries are about owning my experience, not projecting it. I own the experience that I want to create, and I take ownership for that. The part that I want you to hear in that is compassion, respect and compassion. When you are setting a boundary that is changing a fundamental relationship dynamic with someone else, they're going to struggle with it. Yeah, they're going to struggle with it. Okay? Please be compassionate with them as they struggle. I'm not saying you need to change your mind. I get so many people who are like, well, I tried to set a boundary and they got mad. Yeah. When you have an entwined relationship dynamic and you go pulling yourself out of it, do you have an idea of how frightening that is over here? It's like all of a sudden the ground started shaking and there's nothing to hang on to. And so they lash out at you. You get defensiveness. You get anger. You get blame. You get the guilt trip. Woo, that's a good one. Well, if you were just a good daughter, or if you loved me enough, or you're going to get the guilt trip. All responses that you are hearing are a simple reaction to them, this other person, these family members dealing with a very unsafe, shaky ground that they just are saying, get back to being the way that I knew you were because I don't like this. I don't feel safe. Get back to being the way I thought you were. Get back to doing the way I liked it, the way that it was, because I don't feel safe here. So when I don't feel safe, I'm going to lash out at you, I'm going to call you names, I'm going to blame, I'm going to use guilt, I'm going to use manipulation, I'm going to use all of the stuff to get you to go back to being the way that I feel safe. Okay? Now, I'm not saying any of that is okay, but I'm saying please don't kid yourself that it might not show up. All right? And what I want you to do in that place is to empathize and validate. Empathize and validate. And constantly be saying to them without giving up your boundary. You must be consistent. I think you're going to have to sound like a broken record. Be consistent, be consistent, be consistent. And say to them, yes, this is hard. I understand that you would feel that way. Yes, I'm sorry this is difficult for you to hear. This has been very difficult for us to get. Empathize, compassion, empathize. You can still be respectful to them even when they're throwing shade at you. You can be respectful, because the minute that you decide that people pleasing is now more important, you're going to give up your boundary, or you're going to dive into that mess of emotional negativity. I hate the word, like manipulation, guilt, blame, all those toxicity. That's what I was looking for. The toxicity, the emotional toxic pool, you're going to jump in there. And I guarantee you're not getting out of that pool with your boundaries intact. Promise you, you won't. So if you are looking to set more boundaries with your family over the holidays, you've got to understand it starts with you. You need to understand the difference between a boundary and an expectation, and how, particularly over the holidays, how entrenched expectations and tradition become intertwined, and how hard that can be to change. So I want you to be kind and compassionate with yourself as well in this process. And as you communicate it, to be kind, respectful, and compassionate to the people that you are communicating this with, understanding that the shade you might get thrown back at you, which might be extremely painful, is their response of fear. It is a fear-based response to a fundamental change in the relationship dynamic that they are struggling with. If this is something that feels so hard for you, you're not sure how to deal with it, I have a program called Become a Boundaries Boss. You can find that by hitting the link in my bio, or if you're watching this on YouTube, the link will be below. It is an entire 1-hour video along with a transcript, a full worksheet, and resource videos I have made about what a boundary is, what a boundary is not, the steps to create your boundary, and then these examples of how to communicate it. Okay? I want to say that I'm sending you all loads of love as we enter the holiday season, because it can be enormously stressful. And I think that this is your year. I believe this is your year to take ownership of the experience that you want, to say what feels respectful and right, and what doesn't work and does not feel respectful for you. And start to create a new relationship dynamic, because you're worth that. You are worth that. Okay? And it doesn't make anybody else bad or wrong or evil. We're just all doing the best we can in this super, super messy world. So if becoming a boundary boss is of interest to you, let me know. You can find the link in my bio here on Insta. You can find the link below if you're watching this on YouTube. And it's also on my website under programs, I believe, Become a Boundaries Boss. I believe in you. You got this. I want to thank you all for joining me today, especially through the technology hiccup where I had no sound for the first 10 minutes. I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving weekend if you're in the United States. And if not, I will see you here next Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific, where I am live every week. Next week, I'm talking about how to deal with your ungrateful teen around Christmas. So make sure that you're there. Share this to your stories. Thanks, everybody. Bye.